Britain, 1951. You've just survived a world war. Your tea's rationed and your butter, it's a theory. The national bank account looks like someone's student overdraft after Freshers' Week. Britain owed £3.5 billion, which in today's money is don't bother asking. Technically, we had won the war, but by the state of the country, it looked like we lost the will to live. Everyone is emotionally exhausted and still wearing the same coat from 1939. The Labour government was elected in 1945 and they wanted Britain to feel different after the war. So the solution was a massive national festival. No, not the type of festival with the uns music, more admire the progress we've made. The idea for this festival, called the Festival of Britain, came from the fact it was nearly 100 years since the Great Exhibition of 1851. So for context, Prince Albert organised this huge event inside the Crystal Palace, basically this giant conservatory, and it was filled with inventions, machinery, luxury goods and objects collected from across the empire. And the whole thing reflected how Britain saw itself in 1851, rich and powerful. But results will vary by class. So fast forward to 1951, the Festival of Britain, and it was marketed as the People's Festival, which basically meant it's not just for people with the name Jonty Monty III. It celebrated everyday life like design, textiles, furniture, farming, technology, even household objects. Yep, Britain did throw a national party about chairs.
I declare the Festival of Britain open and wish it a universal success.
The festival officially opened in May 1951, and this wasn't just a London thing where the capital congratulated itself and then everyone else had to watch from afar. This went everywhere. Manchester, Leeds, Birmingham, Nottingham, and in 1,700 other towns and villages across the country. It was showing that Britain's cultural life was back, loud and confident. But the real heart of everything was London's Southbank. So before 1951, the Southbank was basically marshland and warehouses. But afterwards, it looked like the future had landed. You got modern buildings, bright colours, experimental architecture. It must have felt completely surreal walking out of bomb-damaged streets and into something that looked like a sci-fi film. But the star attraction was the Dome of Discovery. At the time, it was the largest dome in the world. Inside were exhibitions about science, space, oceans and human discovery. People who had grown up with blackout curtains suddenly found themselves staring at visions of space travel. And then there was the Skylon, this giant futuristic tower suspended on cables. It looked like it was floating. Victorians had the Crystal Palace, and in 1950s Britain, you've got something that looks like an alien toothpick hovering over the Thames. People were obsessed, but critics hated it, which usually means it was doing something right. And for good measure, they decided to create the Festival Pleasure Gardens at Battersea Park. So back in the Georgian period, the pleasure gardens like Vauxhall were where polite society would go. They'd have a little stroll, listen to music, and then sneak off into the bushes to do something like intense hand-holding. The 1951 version was a little bit different. It was more families eating ice cream, going to the fun fair, and one of the sponsors was Guinness, which I'm sure would have gone down well with Dad. So wood was still rationed after the war, which meant designers had to improvise, and this launched an entire design revolution. Furniture started using aluminium and steel, materials developed for wartime aircraft and weapons. So yes, your trendy chair, which you think makes you look dead cool, is basically recycled wartime technology. Designer Robin Day created all of the furniture here in the Royal Festival Hall, going on to also develop the plastic school chair. Even the posters were revolutionary. Designer Abram Games created striking graphics and sharp geometry and heraldic symbols. They were modern, but they were still British. As festival designs appeared everywhere on posters, souvenirs, leaflets, it basically became Britain's first successful national rebrand. Over 5 months, 8.5 million people visited the main site alone. People queued for hours. They bought souvenirs, they saw television demonstrations for the first time, and they experienced modern art. For many visitors, it was the first moment since the war that life felt exciting again. Organiser Gerald Barry called it a tonic for the nation. The festival ended in October 1951. Winston Churchill returned to power and most of the site was demolished, with little remaining by the end of 1952. Yep, Britain built this futuristic dream city and then immediately knocked it down. But the legacy stayed. The Royal Festival Hall survived, And the Southbank Centre became what it still is today, which is a cultural centre where art, music and public life mix together. A space meant for everyone, not just Jaunty Monty III. The Festival of Britain may not have lasted long, but it did change how we reimagined ourselves as a country. As an inventive society looking forward, it proved design, culture and normal people mattered, and that it was also important to have a little bit of fun in our lives.